What if I told you there's a world out there with the most beautiful gleaming colors? A world full of mesmerizing treasures where you find joy and purity and abundance. What if I told you that you can find an endless universe within yourself? Are you ready for a journey? Then come with us and discover the colors of the universe. Now, on Ascension Radio, Studio 3.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Colors of the Universe through Ascension Radio Studio 3. My co host today is Tamara, and my guest is Freya. Hello, everyone.
Hi, Evie.
Hello.
Hi, Freya.
Hi, Tamara.
Today, we want to talk about, more spiritual stuff. And we have another broadcast where we talk more about politics, but this one is going to be partially about Freya's journey. So, Freya, you told me you had cancer and you healed from it. Do you want to tell us a bit about this journey?
Sure, definitely. I did have cancer back in 2012. I was diagnosed, and my world was turned upside down. I was actually advanced, almost stage 4, and had no idea if I was going to live or die. So, being the avid researcher that I am, I was living in near Chicago, Illinois at the time, and I was working there. I travel a lot for work, and recently just landed where I am now in California, but before that I spent different periods of time in different states working on various projects. I work in aerospace engineering, and that's where I was located, so I was by myself and traveling about as I'd done in the past, and I started having excruciating pain and went in to get checked out and had some biopsies done and tests ran, and my doctor said, "Oh, you have advanced stage cancer." And I was like, "Wow, how did that happen?" So she recommended a couple of hospitals I could go to. I picked one actually that was in Wisconsin, started seeing doctors there, going through more testing that went on for several months, and I was just getting worse. So I started to worry about the level of healthcare I was receiving. I wasn't sure I was getting the best care. So once they told me exactly what I had, the name of my tumor and illness, I decided to start researching it for myself, which I think is very, very, very important, not to just take the doctor's word, but I started researching what they said I had, and I was going through medical journals, researching online. I basically had something similar to what Patrick Swayze had, what we thought Steve Jobs had. That's a different story. And so I wanted to know basically how to give myself the best chances. So I researched that. I researched my treatment plan. And I went back to my doctor, my radiologist, armed with all of my information, began asking questions. What is my treatment plan? Now that you've diagnosed what I have, how are we going to attack this? And they said, well, we're going to give you radiation. And I had an oncologist that said, we're going to give you 6 to 8 weeks of chemotherapy. And I was like, wait a minute. I don't want chemotherapy. I'm okay with the radiation. I don't want chemo because of everything you've seen about people being horribly sick and ill, and here I am by myself. And so my doctor's suggestion to me was to bring my family to Chicago so they could take care of me. And I also didn't like that advice because I'm a very, very independent person. And if it's something that I wasn't able to do alone, I really had to think about it. I didn't want to worry my family. I didn't want to involve my family. I wanted to be able to take care of this myself. So something said inside me to find alternative solutions to my problems. So I began researching other hospitals and facilities. I had heard things and read things online that they had great success with this illness in places like Mexico and Europe. They had different treatment processes that were different than the standardized American way to combat this illness. They used heat treatments in Europe. They used baking soda in parts of Italy. There was a doctor who came up with this cure that basically is a tablespoon of baking soda and a little bit of organic lemon juice and a glass of water, and you can heal yourself. So I started learning about all these things. People talked about changing your diet. Those are not necessarily cures, but they will extend your life. I want to make that clear. And then I looked for alternatives because I'm an alternative kind of person to begin with. So I looked for alternative treatment centers. And I found a doctor in Arizona who went over my test records and was very alarmed at how bad of a state I was in and had not yet been treated after working with doctors for about 3 to 4 months. And he essentially said to me, I would do something now as opposed to later. You just don't have the time. So between that and, you know, figuring out if I should write a will, I decided throughout all the confusion that I was in to ask God, to the Creator, to help me to decide what to do. And so I remember I was at home in my room and I said, I thought about when people say, when in doubt, you know, to ask the Creator what to do or to pray about it or however people say that. And so that's what I did, because there's a time when you just throw your hands up because there's not a lot you can do about certain things, and you literally take the entire basket and put it in the Creator's hands. And that's what I was forced to do. Again, something that was very difficult for me because I was always a very strong, independent person. And now I had to rely on someone else really for the first time in my life. And that was a very humbling and very real, you know, feeling, very surreal experience. So I did that, and he showed me in a vision that there was another hospital that I had found that was sort of alternative. They offered alternative treatments. And then there was this hospital that I was recommended to that made me feel like a number, by the way. I felt like I was number 2,487,053 patient waiting to possibly not be here anymore. It was a horrible experience working with that hospital. It was a university hospital, so there were students treating me or working with me at the same time, along with professionals. So it was a very strange environment because you don't want to think that you're being experimented on, you know, when you're looking for people to save your life, but that was the setup there. And they were very, they lacked compassion and all those sorts of things. So I realized that that's part of the dying process, to be completely honest. And I wanted to be treated better than that. So I found another hospital and I said, you know, I said to God, basically, which place should I go? Should I go here or should I go here? And then he just began to show me, believe it or not. And so he showed me going into the first hospital that was recommended me by my primary care physician. And he said, you go in the hospital, and he showed it to me, and then you come out of the hospital, not in very good shape. And the image that he showed it to me in was black and white and gray and sickly. And I was like, And I remember it was sort of like an autumn day that I was walking out of the hospital. My final treatment had happened, and I was on crutches, just really banged up. And I said, I don't really like that. So then I said, what about this place? And then he showed me. I go in for a period of time, and I come out, and everything's normal, vibrant colors. I look fine. I'm I don't need any aids to help me walk. I'm not in a wheelchair. I'm walking out, I'm looking hopeful, and I'm smiling, and there's birds flying and singing, there's people sitting outside talking, and everything's in color. So I said, okay, then that's my choice. So I call the hospital and I say, this is my diagnosis. I've sent over my paperwork, or I'm sending my paperwork to you. Please review it. I would like to come in, schedule an appointment, consultation. And they said, okay. They took my paperwork, read it, called me back, and they said, well, the surgeon that you need to see is actually on vacation and won't be back for several weeks. Perhaps you can come to our location in another state. And I said, okay. But they seemed very worried for some reason. Now I'm still in denial about how bad I am, what, the shape that I'm in. I'm sort of in denial about it. I'm still working. Life goes on. And they said, well, you need to see someone right now, so we'll have you come to a facility out of state. I'm like, okay. So I'm preparing, I'm packing. I have to move out of my apartment because I can't pay my rent in the hospital. So I'm trying to make all these arrangements in a strange place where I don't really live. I'm just working there. So while that's going on, I guess they forwarded my records to the main physician that I would have been assigned to. And they said, well, she saw your records. She's coming back from vacation. And I was like, what? And they said, yeah, you don't have a lot of time. So she's going to come back now and she'll see you in a couple of days. And then I remember, fear setting in at that point, like, okay, this is really going to happen. I'm really going to have to admit that I have this horrible disease and I'm going to seek help. And I started backpedaling and I was like, well, I have to put my dog somewhere and I have to move all my things somewhere into storage or see if who can, whatever. And they were like, take a deep breath. This is very serious. You need to get here immediately. So I was like, okay. Kind of slapped me in the face.
Not to interrupt you, but you didn't mention you are super young. So this is shocking. It's not like you were expecting to have this, and nobody would expect to have it as young as you were.
Yeah, basically, I was diagnosed at 22 years old.
Yeah.
So it was pretty much unheard of. I mean, everyone. Now, what was interesting was in the first hospital, I was there quite often, several times a week, 4 to 5 times a week, it seemed. I saw many young people in the oncology department, that were suffering. I saw a girl that I think I was 16 years old. I saw another very young girl who was on her way home. She was barely there, and she was maybe 15, 16 again. So it's definitely unusual, but there was an uptick in younger people coming down with cancer, which hadn't really happened before to this degree. And, I'll get to my theories on that as to why I even think I contracted it. But so I go in, I meet the surgeon, they do their testing, and they tell me, well, we're a cancer facility, and so we'll do all your testing in 3 days and have the results. So they did that. They checked everything. They verified everything the first hospital said. And so they said, we'll get you a room. And I'm like, wait a minute, I don't have anything with me. And they're like, that's fine. We're going to get started tomorrow on your treatment. And I was like, whoa, tomorrow? I waited like almost 4 months and the other people hadn't even touched me. And so one of the things that I forgot to mention when I was talking to my radiologist was I questioned her on my treatment program. And this is the reason that I left that facility. I had read what a successful treatment plan, which was recommended by the American Medical Association. I read the plan. I memorized the plan. I knew what the plan was. I went to my radiologist and I said, are you going to do A, B, C, and D of this treatment program? And she says, yes, we're going to do everything except C and D. We do not do that. And I thought to myself, You do not do the entire treatment plan. You don't do okay. So that means I'm going to be back in a year because I understand the nature of this illness. I researched it that much. I understood the illness. And so I understood that if they didn't do the full plan, that I would not, they might heal me temporarily, but I would definitely be a lifelong customer. So that's what made me leave and find somewhere else to be treated. So I talked to this doctor and she's like, absolutely, we do A, B, C, and D, and you don't need chemotherapy, which is also what I found in my treatment program from the AMA. Chemotherapy was not necessary, yet the first hospital was going to give me 6 to 8 weeks of extensive chemotherapy. So I was confident that these people knew what they were doing and that I probably would, made the right decision. So we moved forward. And I remember I met my oncologist there at this new hospital. And I said, well, I was so proud of myself that I made the decision to leave this standardized, medical facility and go to a place that offered not just that, but alternative treatments as well. And I said, so I'm going to make it, right? And he said, well, we're going to leave that up to God because this is a very advanced case. And I'm like, oh my goodness, here we go again. I'm looking for some reassurance here and I'm not getting it. I just want to hear that I'm going to live, and of course he's not going to make any promises. So, but I'm not sure that he knew that that really affected me. I spent time driving past cemeteries, not to be morbid, but, trying to understand that I might be in the ground, and I'm going to have to deal with that at some point. So once again, these dark thoughts started coming in and I started to get very depressed. And I remember when I first got diagnosed, I wouldn't tell anyone. So now I'm telling everyone on a radio station. I wouldn't tell anyone what was going on. I didn't want people to feel sorry for me. I didn't want to feel like I was different than anyone else. These are things that patients of terminal illness go through. All of a sudden, you're not like everyone else. You're different. There's something wrong with you. And it's just something that you don't want to focus on. So I never told anybody except a few people that I was close to where I was. And I remember them saying, well, just make sure you stay positive. And I was like, what? I'm trying to decide if I should write a will right now at 22. What do you mean stay positive? And so it was very important advice that now I give people when I hear of their diagnosis, because it's literally 50% of the battle is staying positive, even in the face of bad news, even in the face of doctors saying there's nothing else we can do for you, because it doesn't begin and it doesn't end with these people, these men, these women. They're not the creator. They may have God complex in some cases, but they do not have the final word. And it's important because when you're ill, you are very subjective. I think that's the word I'm looking for. You're just hanging on everyone's word, to figure out how you can get better. And so every word someone says has such a deep meaning for you that I don't think that they know. So even his words saying, hey, we're just going to leave it up to God, that's not a bad thing to say, but I was like, that's not what I needed to hear.
It can be devastating.
Right, because you want assurance. You want to know, yes, you're going to be, even if it's not true, just having that to hold on to can do wonders for a person. Like they hadn't told me what exactly I had at the first hospital until I yelled at them and told them I was leaving. I was like, you didn't even tell me what I have. And so the new bedside manner that doctors are getting in hospitals is not to tell people what your diagnosis is, because it sounds negative and it's going to throw the person into a tailspin, and that mental anguish could be what ends their life.
Right.
So it wasn't until later on that I realized that your mental attitude is definitely 50% of the battle, and the other 50% is the treatment that you receive, which is the recipe for life. So I was, in this space. I had checked into my hospital room. This is a wonderful facility, by the way. I had my own private room, and kind of like a hotel and not really a hospital. So they do everything they can that you're not focusing on the illness, which is just beautiful. And so I'm sitting there alone, and I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, she didn't say that I was going to be okay. And then I sat there and I was like, am I going to die? And it was like repeating in my head really fast, which was kind of like, literally was having like a tail spinning moment. I was like, am I going to die? Am I going to die? Am I going to die? Which is just a crazy thing to say at that age and think. And then all of a sudden I, mentioned to you about my guide. Well, this was his introduction. I hear a voice and it says to me, you're not going to die. And I was like, what? Like no one's in the room with me. And now I'm like, oh, I'm losing it. This is just great. But then I hear it again. You're not going to die. And I was like, well, okay, you have my full attention. You have my full attention at this moment, because those were the words I was waiting to hear. And I was like, I am all ears. I'm listening. So the person spoke to me, which, I know to be my guide now. And he said, you're not going to die. And he says, I want you to listen to me very carefully. He says, you are going to go through this treatment process, and some of it is going to be very unpleasant. And what I want you to do is understand that you are not sick. You are intact. You are well. Your spirit is sound, but your body is sick, and you are not your body. I want you to understand that and make that distinction. You are not your body. What's happening to you is happening to your body, and what I want you to do is pretend that you're watching a movie. So everything that's happening will be happening to your body, but not to you, and I want you to remove yourself from the situation as much as possible. And I was like, okay. And he says, and if you do this, things will go well, you will recover, and you will go home. And I said, check, absolutely. I will do everything that you said. And then he said, and I know you, so please don't argue with your doctors. These people are trying to help you. He says, so whatever they say to do, I want you to do it, and I want you to do it in the right spirit, the right state of mind. I want you to be happy. I want you to be cooperative. And I don't want you to question what they want you to do, kind of stay out of it. And I was like, okay. So it's just like a very unique experience. No one was in the room with me, and no one knew about this conversation, but I did as I was instructed. So I started going through the process. It was all, like I said, very professional. They try to take your mind off of what's happening to you. There's things to do there. There's activities. There's all kinds of things. And you basically can live in the hospital while all this is going on. There's no outpatient treatment. You just stay there until you're done.
But you don't feel like you're in such a medical setting. You're actually having a life and doing things.
Absolutely. You can outpatient, I guess there's an option to do so, but it's very stressful. You just want to be in the place, where you are, and just go a few steps to this appointment or that appointment or that one and get your treatment. So it took all of the burden and responsibility off of you as a person and put it in the right hands. Right. And that's very, important for the healing process, to take that mental stress and physical stress, because you're very weak at that point. I had trouble, you know, like going to the cafeteria sometimes and getting a meal, walking there or whatever I had to do to get there. And then you stand in line, and I fainted a lot. So all of that going on, that was pretty much the most stressful thing I had to deal with, was like, okay, am I strong enough to go get food today? So I go through the process, and I was there for 9 months. I had treatment every day, radiation. So their way to combat what I had was to give me low doses of radiation over a long period of time. I met all of these wonderful people that were staying there. I probably knew like 300 people. And all of us, you know, it's a hospital for advanced cases, so all of us were advanced, and I know every single one of us went home cured.
Amazing.
And that's remarkable, yeah, because I was there for so long. If people were there for like 2, 3 months, 6 months. I was there the longest, so I saw everyone go home, and I was like, that is such an amazing testimony, right, for this hospital. No one I knew was lost. Everyone went home. We were happy. We were secure. We did these, you know, they took us to movie premieres, out to dinner. They had people come and make us dinner. We had game rooms and movie night and Scrabble games and whatever, like libraries, and everything was in this hospital. So they treated us like kings and queens. I'm not even kidding. So much respect. And because they know that part of your psyche needs to be taken care of. You need to be treated like a human being. That wasn't the case with the first hospital that I dealt with. I had horrible.
No wonder so many people left and were good, like left well, were healed.
Oh, yeah, it was a beautiful experience. I mean, every single one of us, when it was time to go home, we sobbed. Like, we didn't want to. We sobbed. It was like, I don't want to leave. Everyone's so wonderful. And I mean, it was such a blessing. Everyone I know who's been to that hospital, they always say it was the best time of my life. And it really was, under such tragic circumstances. And it changed my life in the most positive and beautiful ways. I'll never forget those people. And like, I have a person, an administrator for my case, I still talk to, you know. Before I made the decision to actually go there, they have like a registry of people, ex-patients that you can call and talk to who've had, you know, similar treatment, and you can ask them about their experience. I talked to this wonderful older woman. She was probably in her 60s. She had the exact same thing that I had, same treatment. And the thing that sold me, besides how she raved about this hospital, was she said that they were so precise with the treatment, the laser, you know, radiation laser technology treatments, that if they would have been a fraction of a hair off on their measurements, because they take great care to measure the outside of your body to line the machines up when, you know, it's directed energy. So they don't want to hit the wrong part of your body. And she says if they would have been slightly off, she would have all of these problems. And she's still healthy to this day. And I think she said she had her surgery and treatment 20 years ago. And it was a really moving, conversation. She was a wonderful person. Everyone there was wonderful. So I go through, you know, everything. I have my treatment. I'm totally fine. I'm not even sick. Not even sick.
Amazing.
And then I leave. Yeah. And I'm healed. I'm not in remission. I'm healed.
Yes, because you hear the people that go on for chemo, and like you said before, they go and they have chemo and they do it for a year, and then they're, oh, you're good. And they go back for testing 3 months, 4 months later, 6 months later, and they end up back on chemo again over and over until finally they don't beat it. And it goes on for years.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how I knew. That's the thing. I couldn't do it. I just had this sinking feeling. And I did have, I had what they called cursory chemo. So I had like 2 small sessions of chemotherapy, and let me tell you, I mean, tiny, tiny sessions where I don't even know how long it stayed in my body. But when that chemical hit my body, so they put these tubes in, they put a port in my chest. It's right on top of my heart, still there. So put this, port in my chest. Yeah, sometimes it makes my heart hurt. I want it out. But, so it has like these 2 holes where you can put lines, you know, to give medication into the body. And then there's like this long straw that hangs down from the port, and it went to my affected area, which was like in my lower stomach. And when that chemical, first of all, you know, it goes in, it's cold, it's going in through the port, you can feel it going through. So I knew where it was inside my body as it was traveling down to my stomach. And then as it was going through the line, my organs moved on their own to get away, away from this chemical, because that's how toxic it is. I didn't know what the term live organs meant until I realized my organs were jerking inside my body to the, you know, outer extremities, not outer, but inner extremities of one side or the other. They were dodging this chemical.
Wow.
And I felt, you know, like I wasn't doing it. I wasn't even aware. And I just felt like this jerking inside my body. And I was like, oh my God, my organs are trying to dive away from this toxic stuff.
That
blew my mind. That's how bad it is, the inside of my body. My intelligent organs didn't want anything to do with that.
Right. And you know this stuff is going into your body at the same time, and there's nothing you can do about it. That's not fun.
Yeah, I mean, they wanted to do it because they said that it kills the spores. You know, this thing is like a fungus. It's an angry fungus. And it gives off spores or pollen, you know, like a weed.
Wow. Yeah.
And travels through the blood system, and it tries to find a new place to land. So they had to kill the spores. So I had to get that done, and it was awful. I turned into a psycho, by the way, when I was going through chemo. I was angry, you know, because I was so toxic. Like, being toxic affects your personality.
Right.
Remember, even when I got sick, I became very cantankerous and irritable and snappy, and, you know, you're not feeling well and you think that's what it is, but being toxic will change your personality. So crabby people out there, you might want to change your diet and detox, because when they killed this stuff in my body, I literally call it being born again, because I was not the same person when it was finished. I was a totally different person. I was a happy person. I continuously happy. You never appreciate life so much until when it's threatened, that's for sure. But I mean, I had bouts of depression and things like that since I was a child. I thought it was just normal. I've never been depressed again. This is like 8 years now. I'm clear. I mean, my understanding in things has like skyrocketed. I mean, this was my real awakening. This is my awakening story. Definitely changed my life forever. So I'm grateful for everything that's happened. I'm happy to still be here. I celebrate my birthday like you wouldn't believe, because I'm just ecstatic about being alive. But yeah, that was my experience, and that hospital does wonders, for sure.
That's amazing. And I still can't believe, because when you and I talked about this a while ago, and you had told me, like, at 22 years old to make that decision, and you literally did all that by yourself without your family, put yourself in hospitals and did your research and decided to change. And that's amazing for a 22-year-old to go through all that never mind, make all those medical decisions and then decide that the doctor was wrong and that they weren't doing the right treatment. So that's really just astounding that you went through all that and found the right treatment. So maybe your guide was there helping you at that point too, getting you to that right situation.
Definitely. I mean, when I saw what I saw, I knew what I had to do in that moment, and I left the hospital. It was really weird because you're not free to go, and I didn't understand that. This medical establishment we have is so corrupt, and so what I had to tell them that I wanted a second opinion, and they said, okay, sure, like, we don't know why you want to do that because we're the authority, but here's where you can go for a second opinion. And I was not allowed to go out of the medical system I was in. I couldn't just go anywhere. Well, they made the mistake of handing me my records. So that was the only thing that worked in my favor. They gave me my records, and, normally they just send them, and keep you out of it. So I go to this other place that they recommended, and it's the same thing. I was like, why am I here? How did I get here? This is not where I want to be. So I snuck, I sneaked my records over to the other hospital, and that's what got, allowed that situation to happen. But as I was, so I went to my second opinion, and I just never showed up again. And they actually harassed me is what I'm trying to say. They harassed me when I didn't come back. And I guess when the hospital started, taking over my case, it got put into the system, and this other hospital became aware that I was working with someone else, and they started calling my phone night and day and night, every day of the week, calling me at work.
Wow.
And not only were they calling me, this is what they were saying to me. If you don't come back here, you're going to die.
Wow.
If you don't come back here right now, we're ready. And I was like, it took you 4 months to get ready. Like, you don't think I understand what's happening? Like, I'm getting sicker by the day. Like, I won't even tell you what was happening to me. I was basically losing parts, It took you 4 months to get this far, and you haven't even written my plan. Well, it's written now, or it'll be written in 2 days. What were you doing? Like, it's a big hospital. It's a university hospital. You're a number. They don't care. They're not trying to save your life. They're trying to do their job. And I wasn't impressed. I didn't like how I was being treated. And I made that decision, but then they're screaming in my ear that I'm going to die. And I remember my hand would just shake holding the phone. My hand would shake because they were instilling fear. They were using fear as a weapon against me to bully me into coming back to that hospital.
And you're lucky you're an adult that you could say no and stop it.
Yeah. I mean, you really couldn't say no. I said no anyway.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because they weren't asking me. They weren't giving me permission to do what I felt I needed to do. I literally ran, I defected from that hospital and went somewhere else, and they harassed me. And I could not believe it. I was like, what, obviously this is about the money, because you couldn't even remember like what name was, or you know what I mean? Like, I talked to those people, every week when I was there, and there was nothing. Now, I'm the golden calf or the golden goose that's trying to get away. And I knew it was about the money. And they weren't even going to help me.
No, they weren't even going to do the whole treatment plan.
Right. I mean, I was not going to live very long, and I was clear, having seen it myself on paper, I was clear of what was going to happen if I stayed working with them. So it was not an easy decision to make. It was a decision they didn't want me to make, and I made it anyway, and I can't believe I did that. And after I got better, and I ended up, I had a thing about Facebook. I was never going to join Facebook ever in my life. Well, while I was there for so long, I ended up joining Facebook. I got better, and I was like, I want to share this, with everyone. I joined all these communities and, just gave advice based on my experience. And I said, you have to question your doctor. Sorry. It's something that you're going to have to learn to do. We're on our own. We have to take care of ourselves. I learned about, food. I learned about GMOs. I learned about poison, the fact that we're being poisoned in the hospital because the hospital only served organic food. We weren't allowed to have soda. If you tried to buy it in the cafeteria, they would give you a hard time. I mean, they took care of every part of us that they could take care of that was humanly possible for them. So, but that's where I learned about, what was happening to me and, why it was important not just to go to the gym and work out. I was always a healthy person, which it was kind of a little snide remark I would always make was, oh, I've always been healthy. I've always been healthy. I've always been healthy. And you always are until you're not. And I just couldn't understand what even happened to me. I go back home and get in touch with a friend of mine that I've known since second grade, but we lost touch for a while. She lives in California also. And right before I went into the hospital, we had reconnected. I hadn't seen her since we were 17. We reconnected, and then she disappeared. And then finally, I think I was going into the hospital, and she called me. She says, I'm so sorry I never got back to you for 6 months. I was in the hospital getting cancer treatment. And I was like, what? I'm going into the hospital for cancer treatment. And we're the same age.
And grew up together.
And she's exactly 1 month older than me. So that means we got our shots around the same time. I know for a fact we went to the same doctor.
Wow.
And so we just started talking, and sharing, stories. We talked again when I got out of the hospital. And we kind of concluded that, do you think this was vaccine induced? Mm-hmm. Very possible. Then I find out, allegedly, that vaccines contain the cancer virus along with other viruses. There was somebody who came out recently who said the cancer virus contains a mouse virus. I think it was that Dr.
Yes.
Wachowski.
Judy, wasn't it the female that just came? It starts with an M. Yes. And I can't remember her name right this minute.
Wachowski?
Something like that, yes. I'll have to look it up real quick. But
the one speaking out against Dr. Fauci, she said that they contain a mouse virus that is responsible for chronic fatigue disease, which eventually turns into cancer. And I definitely had that. A mouse virus. Totally sickened.
Yep. Well, can you tell us what the exact cancer was?
Yeah. I had 3C ovarian cancer.
Judy, I can't pronounce it, Makovitz. Judy Makovitz.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and at 22 years old, and then you have a friend who grew up with you. And did she have the same cancer?
No, she had breast cancer.
Oh, still kind of those reproductive cells, though.
Yeah.
Wow. And are you allowed to give a little shout out to that hospital that treated you? Because I'm sure everybody's interested to hear who it was that you were treated by.
It was Cancer Treatment Centers of America.
And what state were they in?
They're in 5 locations. Last I checked, they have one facility outside of Chicago, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Atlanta, Georgia. I believe there's a facility in Texas and one in Oklahoma.
Wow. So after all of this, and you're healthy, thank goodness, and we love you, and we're so happy to have you. So what happened? Did you continue to see that guide?
Oh, yeah. Not immediately after. He was just sort of this disembodied voice at that time. And then it wasn't until, let's see, I got out of the hospital in March of 2013. I moved again to Arizona. And I got a new assignment after I was better. And it was there in Arizona where he properly introduced himself and began talking to me about the state of the world. So, and we've been together ever since.
That's cool. He's done a good job. So what does he have to say in general? I think we touched on that maybe a little bit, but just for positive things in the future, are you getting messages that we as a whole kind of awaken and figure this stuff out, or does it take us another 30 years and we go through all these conflicts again, or what are the messages that you're getting about it?
Well, he's shown me that in the next couple of years, what's possible. And I mean, we're right there. This isn't like we need another 30 years to wait for this. It's right now, which is why he's here now, at least here with me. And, I guess he knew the stuff I was going to get involved in that I wasn't aware of. Like I said, I'm sort of chopping up my conversation and forgetting my points. But when I talked about Facebook, I never wanted to have anything to do with it. And I ended up going on Facebook and just doing, the drone thing where you talk about your food and that kind of stuff and being sarcastic or whatever the kids are doing these days. I was doing that, but it wasn't really me. And so when I found out that there was actually something to get involved in this quest for truth, I dove in, head first, because that's just the kind of person that I am. I have to be doing something worthwhile and meaningful. And so I guess he knew that this was going to happen, and that eventually I'd be in the truther community, part of this movement, and, Space Force coming along. Like I said, he's wearing a spacesuit. So he's attached to that part of our reality. And so he's shown me the future, when these advanced technologies are released, and it's just absolutely amazing.
This was the first part of this interview with Freya. If you want to hear more about Freya's perspectives of the future and the second part of the interview, listen to the next episode. Thank you for listening to Colors of the Universe here at Studio 3 on Ascension Radio. If you enjoy what we're doing, please send a donation via the PayPal button on radio.mpeg.org. Find more amazing content and updates on our Facebook page. And now, just be your colorful self and enjoy your day.